So what is Ayurveda? So Ayurveda actually is a word which is a Sanskrit word which is split into two. So Ayur is the science of life, and the Veda is the power. It's a powerful knowledge, and when this knowledge basically is designed to have it's a spiritual science, wisdom of life that makes you believe in yourself. It's designed not to be like, okay, I'm going to heal you and you are now cured, but it is something that you can incorporate on yourself and use this as a total health wisdom and start using that to heal yourself. Now, it is also one of the ancient science which scientifically connects the mind, body, soul, and emotions along with as a total way of healing rather than just, okay, we're just healing the body. Versus the Western medicine is like, okay, I'm going to give you a pill, I'm going to give you something, and that's just going to heal you. Versus over here, it's not just your body, it goes in much more deeper, and it makes you look at things at a different level. And it's also one of the ancient science, just like some of the ancient sciences that we see in Chinese medicine or Tibetan medicine. It will use your own body as a sign or symptom. It's like almost like a divining rod where you can use those symptoms to say, okay, what else is wrong inside the body? And so this gives scientifically step-by-step solutions for that. And then it's also designed for immediate use by the ancient practitioners. But what I found is this is one of those ancient science which is sort of like the only, among the ancient sciences which not only heals the patient, but it heals the doctor. So you won't find a medical doctor say, okay, I'm going to take your hypertension medicine and I'm going to eat it and you're going to feel better. But the ancient Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese medicine or even Tibetan, what it does is if I am showing a yoga posture and you are doing it, while I'm showing it to you, I'm also feeling better. If I'm making you breathe in a certain way, I have to show you that you have to breathe this way. While you're breathing, I'm feeling good too. So the same concept, you can take this as a parent, as a co-worker, as a friend, and you can teach this to others. While you're doing this for others, you're healing yourself. And that's the beauty of this wisdom, is it's not just, the modern medicine or some of the approaches, like, okay, I've got the secret and I'm going to give you, so I become the god. And that's what this one does. It is an equality kind of a thing. Is like, I'm more of a teacher, I'm more of a guide, I'm going to share that with you. And anyone can become that guide, and anyone can become a teacher. A parent becomes a guide, a sister becomes a guide, everyone becomes a guide as you start healing. So that's the beauty of this. Now, before we move forward, I want to highlight some of the core differences between Ayurveda and modern everything, whether it's modern health, modern science, modern ways of looking at it. Ayurveda, it focuses on macrocosm. Everything is one. The oneness concept is, it's out there in the universe, versus scientifically what happens is the science right from our childhood gears us like, okay, focus, 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 and look at things from a more of a singular nature. Microscopically, we're trying to look for things in a minuscule way with the intention to simplify. We want to simplify it from a modern science point of view. But in the process of simplifying, what happens is we'll end up losing the whole picture. Versus the Ayurveda focuses on that. And so, did you get the apple?
Yes.
So I wanted to show this as an example. Is most of the ancient, it's not just the Ayurveda, most of the ancient medicines and ancient sciences will focus on the, let's say, an apple as a fruit as a whole, versus the modern science will try to focus on, okay, there is an apple, but I also want to find out if there's a germ inside, what's the vitamin, what's the nutrient, that I can now take it out of it and put it into a capsule. And now that microscopically, now all of a sudden, you want to have vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, and then also be scared of, okay, does this have a GMO? Does this have germs and things like that? And so all of a sudden, you're taking your focus off of the whole, and now you're pinpointing it into the microscopic level. And so that brings about an issue of ancient science will focus on the whole, but it also brings in complexity. It's like, okay, this one not just doesn't have only vitamin A, vitamin D, also has more, which I don't know. So there's complexity that comes into it. Versus modern science is designed to like simplify it and say, okay, there is vitamin A, hence I should eat this. There is vitamin D, hence I should eat this. So there is a good and bad on both sides. However, in the micro-focusing, what happens is this becomes a subjective. What I feel when I eat this apple is completely different than what she feels or what you feel, and that becomes a subjective. And how this heals you versus a vitamin pill, how it heals, it's a subjective versus objective kind of a thing. So there's a little bit of a difference on that. So what this brings in is this focus of the science brought us into the biggest problem that we're actually facing is the rise of the germ theory. So people would now start thinking, okay, there is germs over here, so I need to, now that I've touched it, nobody can eat this, right? So because there's germs on this. So you would now focus on microscopically that germ that's out there that is going to now start making you afraid that when you go on an airplane, am I going to fall sick? And if somebody's sitting right next to me or there's a mosquito. So the germ theory brought about the fight or flight mechanism. Either you're going to fight it, or you're going to run away from it, or you're going to be living in fear that everything has germs, everything has issues. And so that micro-focus brings in a little bit of a problem in stopping us. It sort of self-sabotages us in self-healing. So the holistic world also, there's a lot of good people. The problem, what I feel very dearly is there's a lot of naivety and a lot of goodness that gets taken advantage of. And so a lot of fear is used to heal, trying to get people into trying to do things which is not unnecessary. So of course there are certain facts. There is pollution, there is GMOs, and there is Wi-Fi's and radiation and all that. Those are all there. However, you go on the internet and you read something and you feel, oh, I've got the solution. Then you read something else and it's like, oh, I don't have a solution. Then you read something like, I'm confused. So you kind of go into that holistic chaos kind of a thing where you want to do the right thing, but there's too much information that's not in a structured format. So this brings us into what are we focusing with the germ theory and the scientific approach of trying to micro-focus. Are we focusing on all the big bad wolves that are out there, whether it's the germs or whether it's the GMOs, whether it's the government is about to get you? All of those things gets you off of the main focus of what we really need to do is build a brick. Focus on yourself. Focus on what's within and how you can make yourself so strong that no matter who's around, no matter if I give you to eat this, you can eat it, but you'll be fine. Okay? So no, I won't let you eat that. But at the same time, the thing is, fear is in the mind, and that can sabotage us on a whole different level. And that's what Ayurveda helps us to do different, is once you understand that the solutions is not in focusing on what is the microscopic problem that I can eliminate, but how I can change myself at an internal level that is going to strengthen me, that no matter what comes around me, I'm going to be good. That's the concept behind it. And it creates like an invisible shield that you could walk into it without fear, into any room or any airplane, not worrying about certain things that are going to come and attack you. Okay? So Ayurveda is like a box of goodie with all the goodness, and really it doesn't focus on germs, doesn't focus on toxins, but terrain is the king. And the holistic world, you'll find this word coming up a lot, that it's not the germs, but the terrain. Terrain meaning how your structure is, how your cellular structure is. And if you're strong at your cellular level, at your organ level, or at your tissue level, nothing can come and nothing can affect you. So, and this is not just a new concept. It's been used time and again, and I've seen personally yogis like these sitting in with almost wearing nothing in the middle of cold Himalayan terrain. How do they sustain themselves? Tibetan monks, if you see some of the pictures and even see some of the videos, they're barely wearing anything, but the weather is so bad out there in Tibet, and they are still able to sustain that. So are they celestial beings or are they human beings? And the good news is they're as human as we are. And they have just managed to strengthen their internal terrain to such a degree that they can sustain anything at a much more quicker level. Even I'm not there yet, but at the same time, this is I personally believe if somebody else can do it, we can do it. We all have the capability. Mother Nature has given us all the same tools. These guys have just mastered it. We just need to learn to get to that level. So that's, my story is a long story, so we're going to skip that. Let's get down to the crux of how the Vedic philosophy, the Ayurvedic philosophy, is a little bit different than the modern medicine, which is more subjective, where it needs to know how you are at a structure. You have a skeleton, you have a tissue, you have a cell, and it needs to be objectively be able to see it. Versus the Ayurvedic thing, it's an ancient tradition which talks about macrocosm, microcosm. So you have the whole, and you have the bacteria, and you have the vitamin D. It's a microscopic level. It's a part of the whole. So Ayurveda accepts this everything. It accepts the germs, it accepts the vitamins, and it accepts the apple also as well. So that's the beauty of this thing. So the microcosm exists. It doesn't say it doesn't exist. It exists, but it's within the macrocosm. So when this concept was traditionally written down, it was almost written down 5,000 years ago, the ancient scientists basically broke it down to the 5 elements. And we've heard about 5 elements in Chinese medicine, but the 5 elements in the Indian medicine is basically these, which is the space, air, fire, water, and earth. And there's a little bit whether you believe in Genesis, which says, and God spoke the word, and the earth was formed, or the Big Bang theory, and there was a Big Bang, and then the world was formed, or the ancient way, which talks about first there was space. In the space, there was some amount of movement, and that sound is basically what created the movement. And that from that movement came air. When the friction of the particles happened, fire came. When the fire melted the atmosphere, the water condensed, and once the water condensed, it became earth. That's the sequence of how earth was formed, and how the humanity and how life came onto the existence. Now, do these 5 elements exist only in theory? Actually, they exist everywhere. That's the theory. So I'll give you an example. The eye, for all of us, eyeball, exists in a socket. So that's the space. The movement of the eye is the air. The ability to be able to see is the fire. The tears is the water. And the solidity of the eye is the earth. So at any given time, I can take anything and I can find those 5 elements inside you. So the wisdom, once you know this foundational thing, the essence of Ayurveda is you have these 5 elements on the inside. If you have those balanced with the 5 elements on the outside, you're going to be in perfect balance and homeostasis. That's the key. Lecture is over. I'm giving you the main key thing. Balance the outside and balance the inside of the 5 elements. And you're in a good shape over there. Okay, so now, what Ayurveda takes is not just those 5 elements. Now it's going to go a little bit deeper. It's going to now take mind, body, soul, emotions, combine that, and put that into one big spiritual essence. So your healing and your disease is not just at your physical level. It's at a deeper level. And that's what Ayurveda goes into a little bit more deeper. So to explain that, the ancient scientists actually talked about how the body is not just what the body is. It's 5-layer deep, okay? So the outermost sheath that we all see is the physical sheath. The inside one is the life force, the energetic field. The innermost and the middlemost is the mind, the biggest culprit of all, who's going to create a whole lot of problems, but that's the center, epicenter. Beyond that is the wisdom. The wisdom feeds the mind. That's how it is. And then beyond wisdom is the bliss. We all want to achieve that bliss and the peace. And so it's an outside-in journey, but also an inside-out journey. And it describes it very scientifically, these 5 layers. Now, the interesting thing for us to realize this in our healing is the physical layer is the only that's visible and tangible. You can experience it with the physical from the 5 senses. All the 4 layers on the inside are not visible. They only can be felt. They can only, you cannot see the life force, but you can feel it. You cannot see your mind, but you know the mind is working. You're thinking about it. You have the wisdom that's coming in. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it, but you can feel it. Okay, that quick, beautiful thought that came in was from the wisdom. And of course, peace, you can feel it. So all the 4 layers on the inside are only felt. They're not tangible. And this becomes important because once you understand that the healing is not just at a physical level, now you can start seeing that there's a connection between 90% of those 4 layers are invisible. So are we only focusing on the physical, which is the tangible? Most of the time, yes, because that's how we are trained to, that's how we are groomed to, that we can feel it, we can see it, the scientific world makes us feel it and see it. That's how we are trained from a childhood. But Ayurveda makes you think a little bit more deeper, that there is a 90% that's invisible. That could be the culprit, that for all the diseases, and also the solutions of all your healings could be in that 90% of the invisible. So now let's connect the mind, body, soul with how does the mouth come into the picture, okay? So if you think about it, our whole body is a completely closed system, and there are very specific openings in the body. And among all the openings, like the eyes, ears, nose, whatever the access entries are, the mouth is the only opening that's voluntarily controlled. We can choose to be quiet and completely not say anything, or we can keep on eating and keep on opening the mouth and just putting in a lot of things that are out of control. So the mouth becomes an important thing where it is the physical access. It's the beginning of the digestive system, but it is also the entryway to the inner portals. All 4 inner levels are connected through the mouth. The mouth is the source where you are going to get the food. It's also connected to the nose, and so if your nose is blocked, you're going to be using your mouth to breathe. So the primary function of the mouth is really to be your backup for your, it's a survival thing. It's a survival access, because if you are lacking breath, you're going to have to open your mouth. So that's the primary, actually, the function of the mouth. Then, of course, water, life force, everything from outside in is going in from the mouth. Here's the beauty. The mind, the soul, all the invisible thing can be felt, but mouth is the only thing that can express what's coming out. So how you're feeling at your mind level, you have to put it in words. And the only way it's going to come out is through words. And it's going to come out through the mouth. How you feel at the soul level, how you feel at if a beautiful thought is coming, you have to express it through the mouth. And so the mouth becomes a portal for your inner invisible to communicate. So this is an important factor, because if there are blocks and you're not able to express what's going in and going out, now we have a problem. Because if you go to a doctor and I say, okay, what's your problem? You don't tell me the symptom, I'm not going to be able to help you. So you have to be able to understand what's going on inside, feel what's really going on, to be able to even communicate to the outside. If a child cannot communicate to a mother or a father what's going on, then the parent are going to feel something, they know the child, they're going to be able to figure out, okay, you don't have to say anything, I know what to do. So parents are in a good position to be able to do that. But when you go outside into a stranger world, not everybody's going to be able to understand. So that words, the blockages on that can start creating issues. That's the biggest problem in most of the relationships, most of the communication skills, all of that is coming out of the word. The mouth is important from an inside-out movement point of view, as well as an outside-in movement.